Okay, I have it. It says it is recording, so you can start anytime. Thank you so much.
Veronica?
Veronica. Oh, dear.
Okay, well, I'm going to start and we'll let Veronica come in at the end and introduce me.
That sounds amazing. Thanks, Alexandria.
Okay, got to do something quick before the technology disintegrates. Maybe it has the flu, I'm not sure.
Oh, dear.
So anyway, my name is Alexandria Brighton, and I am the formulator for the products that you all use and love, hopefully. And today we're going to be talking about infectious diseases, because if you are online at all or have a television set, I'm sure you've heard of the coronavirus, and everyone is getting pretty upset about that. So I thought we would talk a little bit about that in particular, as well as other infectious diseases. There's 2 flus out this year, A and B, that are causing, some people a lot of problems. So we'll just talk about infectious diseases even in general, but particularly viral infections. So before we get into talking about the oils, I just want to talk a little bit about viruses, because they're very different than bacteria. Viruses, particularly like the coronavirus, with its little crown of thorns that it has around it, can attach to a cell, and then they can take over the cell, and they can reproduce quickly. And quickly is something important that you need to remember, and is also the reason why they spread so quickly is how fast they can reproduce. And that's why you can maybe get up in the morning and you're a little tired, maybe you have a little sore throat, or your sinuses are a little stuffy, and you go to work anyway, thinking that, it's nothing, you're going to be fine. Then by noon, maybe you're starting to get a little bit of a fever and starting to feel a little worse, and maybe you're coughing more. And then you get off work at 5 o'clock and you're completely sick with the flu. So taking action quickly is very important. Of course, we're going to talk about prevention also, but say you're the 5 o'clock person who is now sick, we need to talk about what you can do with that. It used to be, and it's not so much anymore, thank heavens, that you could go to the doctor and they would prescribe you an antibiotic, even though it was going to have no effect whatsoever on the virus that you are sick with. So now, thankfully, they don't do that so much. They tell you to go home, drink lots of water, get some rest, don't go to work, don't go to school, whatever, activity that you have out in public, and take vitamin C or something, and hopefully you'll get over it. So that's because regular medicine, and thank heavens we have medicine, you don't want to be going around with a broken leg or other life-saving things that medicine does for us. It's just in the cases of viruses, they don't have that much to offer. And the latest update that I got on the CDC and the World Health Organization was that there are some antiviral drugs out there. However, none of them have proven to be really effective. And that also they are testing more things. And they didn't say what kinds of things, but hopefully one of these days they will realize that essential oils are some of the things that are effective. So we're going to talk about what we have at HBN that can help you and your family hopefully prevent getting one of these viruses, respiratory things that are going around. And the news with the coronavirus is it is very serious. And at the end of an hour-long talk, the conclusion was we have to wait and see. We have no idea how it's going to spread how long people are going to take before they're infected and have symptoms and so forth. So it's an unknown thing, but they're taking it very seriously, and so we all want to take it very seriously also. Now, if you're going to be using essential oils, and I know I really haven't had an opportunity to speak much with you HVN people who are newer, but there are some things that you need to know about essential oils. If you're going to spend the money, and some of them can be a little pricey, you want to make sure that they're going to be effective if and when you need them. So one of the things that we want to do is we really want to keep our oils from deteriorating, and there are things that you need to do. Number one, you need to keep them away from heat, which means in the summer you can't throw them in your glove compartment. They need to stay away from light, because light can also deteriorate them, which is why we don't put oils in clear bottles. The other thing is oxygen, and apparently a lot of companies do not teach people what deteriorates their oils, because every summer when we start having farmers markets and little fairs in shopping centers and stuff, I always see people with a table with about 10 or 12 oils with the lids off, every one of them, sitting there for 4 hours getting a lot of oxygen in their bottles, and that happens to deteriorate your oils very rapidly. Not only are they evaporating, but they're also deteriorating, and they're not going to be as strong. And even if you look at our gas chromatograph and you say, oh, that oil is really good, it's really powerful, when they start to oxygenate, what happens is they change their chemistry. And so you might not have in your bottle anymore, if you leave the lids off, what you thought you had in your bottle, because it slightly can change. Maybe it wasn't irritating and it'll become irritating. So make sure that you take care of those oils, and they will take care of you. So another thing that I wanted to address is I realize that most companies that are MLM companies that are selling essential oils end up with people from a lot of other companies. And a lot of other companies aren't always giving people all of the best advice. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is the fact that we have really good quality oils. And I started buying oils in 1988 when we had to import them from France. We had to import the bottles from France because there wasn't any manufacturing of bottles with an orifice reducer in the U.S. So we also had to import teachers like Dr. Penawell and others, biochemists, pharmacists. I still have all my gas chromatographs dating way back to the early 90s when they were signed by a biochemist and also a pharmacist who, because in France essential oils are used for medicine, signed off on all the gas chromatographs that this is what the representation of this oil should be if it's going to be used in a medicinal way, which they do that in France. So one of the things I can tell you is there are so many people coming into essential oils that if you did not have good contacts, which we've had the same ones for lots and lots of years, it's really hard to get super good, what we would call French medicinal quality essential oils, if you haven't already secured those. Because what happens is every time a crop is harvested, every time they're distilled, they're already spoken for. So in order to get any kind of an oil like we have, you would have to get it from somebody who got it from somebody who got it from somebody. And if you are a very big company, there's not enough of that to go around. So even though people say they grow their own or they distill their own, that's great and wonderful, but it doesn't mean that they have the quality. And just to say they're organic doesn't necessarily mean that they have the chemistry in that organic oil. It just means it wasn't raised with pesticides, but it may be a very low terpenol 4 tea tree. If it is, it's not going to be antibacterial. Ours is way up there. And, you know, it isn't just about being organic, and it isn't just about them being certified by something that you put together yourself. Ours were certified from day one way back as EOBBD, which was a pharmacological certification that they met certain standards of growing, certain standards of distillation, and certain standards of what is inside that bottle. And if you don't have good gas chromatographs, not just one, and I've seen people, and maybe you have too, if you've gone online to different suppliers of essential oils, and they're not all network marketing people, but they have a gas chromatograph like for lemon from 6 years ago, but they're still selling lemon with that same gas chromatograph. Well, lemon has a very short life and will oxidize very quickly. So if it was 6 years old, it would be totally worthless. But they don't upgrade their gas chromatographs, which you have to do every single time a new crop comes in. So we're going to talk about our oils, which meet all of the standards that we need, where you can, if you're going to say, this is my program for infectious disease, then you are betting your life and your family's life that what you're getting is what it's said that it is, so that you can have that security. And people always ask me, well, about company so-and-so and about company so-and-so. Well, without gas chromatographs and knowing some of them very intimately, we just can't comment on that. We can comment on ours. We know what ours is. We can show what ours is, and they're the same quality of French medicinal quality that I've used since '88. So you can rest assured in that. Now, one of the things that we really want to talk about is staying well. And it's way better, because I don't know how many of you have really enjoyed having the flu, but most people don't, that we want to do prevention. We want to prevent getting sick as much as possible, and not just wait till we're sick and then try to figure out what we do next. So because these most of the respiratory viruses are airborne, person-to-person contact, and that doesn't mean you have to touch somebody. You have to touch something they touched within the last few hours or so, and you can be as far away as 6 feet or more and still pick up something. With the coronavirus, they are seeing, but they're not confirming, that people can be sick, 2 to 3 days before they have any symptoms that would let them know that they're sick. Well, in that 2 or 3 days, they could cover a lot of territory. They could be at the grocery store picking up the tomatoes and putting them back because they didn't like that one. They could be touching door handles all over. They could be standing next to you in a conference. There's many things that are so unknown yet that we really want to actively do what we can do to help. So prevention is going to be your number one plan. So what are we going to do? They tell you, wash your hands frequently, wash your hands frequently. And today, that one company that, I forget their name, that was doing the alcohol hand disinfectants, that said it was going to prevent you from getting or kill the flu viruses and the coronaviruses. The FDA made them correct all of their language, so that's another thing you don't want to do in your enthusiasm for oils, is to say that they cure or do anything that mentions a disease or a body part, including the immune system. So we're just going to talk about what essential oils can do and why are they different than like those alcohol things. If you listen to any of our past recordings, which I think still exists somewhere there, you'll know that a lot of the when the flu started really getting bad and so forth, everybody jumped on the bandwagon of we got to have antibacterial dish soap and we got to have antibacterial hand soap and we got to have all of these alcohol things that you have. And the problem with that is they did kill some germs, but what they did is they killed the weak germs, the weak viruses, the weak bacteria. So then what happened is now we've got these stronger, more resistant to treatment bacteria and viruses that aren't affected by that because only the strong ones were left, so the only ones that reproduced and mutated and we're dealing with today were the ones that were strong. So we don't want to further that condition out there. We want to have something. Well, the difference between essential oils and other things that are out there to try to help your family, like the alcohol wipes and all of that, is that most of the things, including drugs, are made with only one or two active ingredients. So how long do you think viruses and bacteria have been on this planet? And they've survived. They've survived because they have the ability to adapt to simple things. And a lot of those because they have such few ingredients, and the ingredients are always the same. When we man-make things, we want to make sure they stay the same. Well, it's easy for them to survive those kinds of things after a period of time, and it's getting to be a shorter period of time. So, and the coronavirus, they already know it's mutated, and it's going to continue to mutate also. So even if they think they find a vaccine, if they think they find something else, until it's run its course, it will be very hard to stop that because it's going to continually change. And by the time they can create something or a vaccine, it usually has already become ineffective for the variety that's present today. Essential oils are very complex. They have, if you look at a gas chromatograph, which only shows you the most important ones and not even some of the little ones in trace amounts, have a lot of chemical components. So eucalyptus oil, like eucalyptus globulus, is not just one thing. Eucalyptus globulus is not a one thing, it's a combination of things. And it's much harder for viruses and bacteria to become resistant to things that have multiple components because there's too many of them. And they can't deal with all of that at once. It's not a 1-2 thing. It might be 150, 200, 300 thing. So they're very complex, and so to this date, most viruses and bacteria have not become resistant to them. Another thing essential oils have going for them is every year, of course the weather's different every year, crops are different, they change slightly. They'll still have a basic profile, but it'll be a little less of something and a little more of something, making it just enough different that it's like a whole new thing to pathogens every year. So we want to take advantage of that. One of the ways that we can do that, besides just washing our hands, is we can use the blend of essential oils we have called Protector. And Protector has a wide variety of oils, eucalyptuses, lemon, things that have been known for a long period of time, for aromatherapists that is, to be very effective. Dr. Pennewell used to say this little catchy saying that it helps you to remember. He used to say, Melaleuca, which is tea tree, Melaleuca for bacteria, eucalyptus for virus. And they are very effective in that way. And with the eucalyptus, we also have the benefit of having Eucalyptus radiata, which is great, and a milder form of eucalyptus, especially for children, that is effective in your upper respiratory, and Eucalyptus globulus, which is very effective when something gets down to the lower parts of your lungs. And a lot of these that are turning into pneumonias, which is what they said the first patient in the U.S. in Seattle had, was a pneumonia, was that it was getting down to the bottom part of the lung. So it can be very specific, And Protector has all of those things in there, so it can do wonders. One of the ways that I was first amazed, and maybe some of this happens to you, if you put a bunch of towels in the washer and then you get busy and you forget they're in there, and it's summertime and it's warm in your house, and the next morning you open the washer and, oh yeah, that's where they are, and they smell really bad because there are little bacteria and pathogens in there that are creating that moldy, icky smell. So I started putting Protector in my washing machine every time I put in anything, particularly in the summer, and just took the bottle and kind of shook it in there 3 times when you put in the soap, so it wasn't, bothered by the soap. But that happened again. I had put some stuff in the washer and I forgot until the next day. And when I opened it, it smelled like the washer had just stopped. There was no mildew smell, no any bad smell at all, because they had killed all of those germs that were making the smell. So it was one of those things that lets you know, hey, this might really work, because that doesn't happen normally. So if you can put that in your whatever you're using to wash your hands, you can put some in, like making a mister bottle, and I know we have instructions on making mister bottles to be able to take with you. It's way better when you get to the grocery store if you want to wipe your cart off to spray some Protector on, and if you're in a 2-ounce bottle, something that you can carry in your purse or a man can carry in his pocket, you can just mist that, because we have very fine misters also, to spray on your carts, on handles and toilet seats, to restrooms, just any place and every place that you have to touch things that other people touched out in public. It's that way you're not taking it home with you. And even though they recommend people not to touch their face, not to touch their nose, we do it subconsciously. We aren't aware in the first place that a lot of these respiratory germs enter your body is through the inside edge of your nose and breathing them into your throat. That's why you start to get maybe up where your tonsils are, if you still have them. Start to get that little scratchy, it hurts a little when I swallow feeling, is because that is the beginning. And one of the things that Dr. Pennewell taught us to do with tea tree was to put a drop on the tip of your little finger, just one drop, suck it off, and swish it around in your mouth and swallow it. And if you did that about 3 times, in wait 5 minutes and do it again. And we aren't going to have a baby doing this, of course, or a child under the age of 6, but, teenagers, older kids, and adults can do that. It usually would make it quit hurting, and that would most always be the end of it. It wouldn't come back. You wouldn't move on into something else. So with that, I do want to put a little insert here about taking oils internally. We are a pill-conscious world. We think a medication needs to go in your mouth or it's not going to work. And for essential oils, because of the wonders of our body and the wonders of the oils, many are more effective if you put them on your feet. And we're going to talk a lot about putting our other oils on your feet. So what happens when you put them on your feet, and you can test this by rubbing a clove of garlic on your foot and see how many minutes it takes before you taste garlic in your mouth. And it's not going to be very many, because it goes right into the bloodstream. We have a lot of access to the bloodstream through our feet. So when it goes into your bloodstream instead of into your stomach, through your mouth, then what happens in your stomach is your liver removes a bunch of chemicals that it thinks you don't need right now and has to process those and inactivates them and gets rid of them. So you're really not getting as much help from your oil as if you actually put it on your feet. So keep that in mind, because we have lots of people who have thought if Tri-Remedy, which is cinnamon, clove, and thyme, is good on your feet, maybe it would be better if I just licked some. Well, you can burn your esophagus doing that, burn the mucous membranes in your mouth doing that. You can burn your stomach doing that, especially if you hadn't eaten anything. And you're not getting the best benefit of it as if you would have put it on your feet in the first place. So it's something that's easy to do for you. It's something that's easy to do for your children, keeping in mind that we don't use phenols on small children under the age of about 10, because they have not developed their liver fully, and we do not want to burden it with trying to get rid of all of this stuff that you are consuming. So for children, we stay away from phenols. Phenols that we have are oregano, we have thyme, we have cinnamon, and we have clove. Even though cinnamon's an aldehyde, it acts like a phenol. It's hot, and it can be very irritating. So we don't want to rub it all over your chest, any phenols. We don't want to, decide that's really good to put on your throat, excuse me, or lick off your hand. We want to put them on the feet. The feet has a different kind of skin because we were meant to go barefoot. Excuse me, I had to stop and have a drink of water. So the skin there can handle something like a phenol, where the other parts of our skin is really not meant to have that. So we're going to use, and this is something that you can do every day, our wellness blends. We have a wellness for adults, which is a little bit stronger. It just has a very small amount of the cinnamon, because it's a good germ fighter. But Dr. Pennewell personally told me, so it isn't hearsay, what amount of that we could put in a blend that could be used every day that would not affect the liver for adults. We aren't going to use it for kids, and we aren't going to use it for very elderly or infirmed people. If somebody has a liver disease like hepatitis, we'll stick with the kids' oils for them. If they're an alcoholic and has cirrhosis, we will stick with the kids' oils. We aren't going to give them anything, even with a little bit of something like cinnamon in it. But for the average adult, you can put that on first thing when you're getting dressed in the morning. It's a good time because, your feet are available. And you can put it on when you get ready to go to bed at night. And usually if you do that through the cold and flu season, and you keep it up, you can get through that without having to succumb to a cold or flu or any other kinds of infectious respiratory things out there. We have one for children that does not have any phenol in it at all and is safe once they're past like the age 2 or 3, depending on their size. The wellness for kids. And you can do the same thing. You can put it on in the morning, especially if you are working parents and you have to drop your child at preschool, where, little kids are having a kind of runny nose, and then it gets on toys, and then every little kid puts everything in their mouth. So it's very easy in those environments for children to get infected with some type of a virus or bacteria. So we've had many parents tell us that since they started using the Wellness for Kids, that their kids are the only ones who don't miss days of school, which means then their parent is not missing days at work. So what do we do for the kids who are younger that we aren't going to use the wellness for? We can use Eucalyptus radiata, or we can use Ravensara. Now, Ravensara is a totally amazing oil, especially for respiratory, because it has 1.8 phenol in it, which is a constituent of eucalyptuses, and we have in our 1.8 rosemary, and also the Ravensara, that helps your body process oxygen more efficiently. So if you have some kind of respiratory thing, and we found a validation of this, and we can only tell stories that are ours to tell. Otherwise, we are, I can tell what Dr. Pennewell told me, and you can tell a couple of stories of what I'm telling you, but mostly what people want to know is your story. So keep that in mind. But we had a lady who was in a nursing home, and she had smoked, and she had COPD, and she was getting respiratory infections all the time. And so she was in the hospital, and she was on her third set of antibiotics because the first two didn't work, and the third one wasn't working either. Remember, somebody from a nursing home is usually very frail, has a weak immune system, and is exposed to a lot. But she had the little thing on her finger that said what her oxygen level was. And her daughter called me and asked me if I would come over because she thought she was going to pass away, and she didn't want to be there by herself. So I got there, and I asked her if she had any Ravensara. And she said, yeah, I have it. I said, do you have it with you? Because her mom had been in the hospital for a week. Oh, no, it's sitting on my nightstand. So she ran and got it really quick and came back and put it on her mom's feet. And she put it on her feet every 15 minutes for an hour, and just a drop on each foot, which is safe enough that you can actually do that with a newborn if a newborn should have pneumonia. And in a matter of, a half hour to an hour, her mom was up in the mid-90s of oxygen level in her blood after hovering down in the 81 area, and was worried that it was going to be worse. So that was a demonstration, not a planned one, but a good demonstration that it actually does work. It actually does help your lungs breathe better. And it's very safe for children. I was fortunate to be sitting next to a lady, a medical doctor who practices in London and in Canada, in Vancouver, a pediatric doctor who had just treated a newborn that was born and got pneumonia and had to be in an oxygen tent. And she put a drop 4 times a day on the little baby's feet, and by the second day she was no longer in the oxygen, and by the third day she was able to go home. So it's an amazing oil. When you look at its profile, it shows nothing particularly outstanding. It's just the way it all works together to make this, something incredible for children. I know some people have heard that Ravensara, it used to be called Ravensara, now it's Ravensara. That's a whole aromatherapy community thing that's been battling on for a while, that it can cause seizures. Well, there's 2 kinds of what we called Ravensara. Then we had to change the name to Ravensara, but the oil inside the bottle did not change. And it's the very safe one, the one that can, go on the feet, the one the doctor used, the one that we have used since the 80s. And it's non-toxic. There is another one that was called Ravensara that has some constituents that you would never put on a baby. And it doesn't smell the same. The 1.8 that's in the Ravensara makes it smell kind of eucalyptusy, kind of like Eucalyptus radiata. The other one does not have that smell at all. It almost burns your nose to smell it. So people always mix stuff up because somehow in the world of selling lots of essential oils, people forgot to actually educate their users on these different things so that they would know what to do and what to use and the differences between. And so if you get one that does not smell eucalyptusy out there in the world, which hopefully you're buying ours, which is the right one, which we know because of testing it, not because we sniff the bottle and say, oh yeah, it's got 28% of this and 5% of that. I can tell you nobody's got that good a nose. And if they do, they're putting on a show. So those are things that you're going to want to do for sure. You're going to want to make sure. And the thing is when they say they don't know if it's going to get worse before it gets better on the coronavirus, don't wait till there's a huge outbreak and then find out that you order your Ravensara because you have some little children and find out that your postman's sick and it's not coming, or your UPS driver's sick and it's not coming. We need to keep all of these things, just because our world is not as safe as it used to be, on hand at all times, whether there's a coronavirus outbreak or a bad flu or something else. There's always something coming. And we need to have them because you might, if you can stop something in a day by doing the French intensive, which is what we're going to talk about next, which is how they have to work with viruses and stuff in France, where they use essential oils for medicine, is that you would get on it immediately at the very first sign of a throat infection or a runny nose or feeling extra tired because your immune system is getting low. They would use the tri-remedies. They would use the Ravensara if it was children. And we have a children's one, tri-remedy. Instead of just the wellness blends, we would go up a little bit and we would use the tri-remedies. We would use, if it came to it, the lavender and oregano. We don't use that on small children, but we can use it after tri-remedy only if you're not starting to feel better. Then you can use that. We have many medical people who have used these oils with their clients. We had a doctor who, as you read through, I forget what page it's on, maybe it's, it's on page 4 of the handout, which I hope you've downloaded, so you'll have that to review, that made the hand lotion up with the peppermint and the lemon, and I think it was tea tree. What is it here? Eucalyptus radiata, tea tree, and peppermint. And he would still, between clients or patients, wash his hands like you hope your doctor's doing before he sticks something down your neck. And then he would put this lotion on, and the recipe is in the handout, like I said, on page 4, telling you how you can make that up yourself. What the lotion does is it helps keep the surface of your hand has more oil on it, doesn't evaporate quite as fast, so that you're protected just a little bit longer. But the French intensive method, if you should start to feel that you're coming down with something besides doing the tea tree lick, we have a wonderful blend called Breathe, which has a lot of those 1.8 cyanol oils in them that help you to breathe better. And sometimes, instead of just using a single oil like Eucalyptus radiata, if you buy a blend, it's already got 3 or 4, 5, 6 oils in it without you having to buy 6 bottles of oil and mixing them together yourself. So you save quite a bit of money if you have a blend that is effective for you that you can buy already made. So the Breathe is very helpful. You can mix it with a little bit of one of the carrier oils and apply it to your chest. You can put it in one of the water diffusers, and that's what we usually do in our family if somebody starts to get a respiratory thing, is we will put Breathe, or if they're young enough, we will put a little Ravensara, and I'm saying little, like 10 to 15 drops in one of the diffusers that that we have at our company that are water, where you pour water in the bottom, which if you're doing that should be distilled water, and then you put the 10 or 15 drops in there, and then you can put that on for 15 minutes every couple of hours, and you don't have to worry about overdosing, because when the water's gone and the oil is gone, there isn't any more. And we've had people who had the nebulizing diffusers, which are just straight oil, and then air blows in and makes that oil break up into particles, and it comes out as a little mist, but that's 100% oil. This is coming out in as oil and water. So it's diluted with the water, and it's also diluted with the room. The air that's in the room itself is diluting the oil. So it can be very safe. People do strange things. I'm sure that's, really not news to anybody. But we had a gentleman take our Calm Blend, which I don't know if any of you have smelled that or not, but it's pretty powerful. It's very physically relaxing. However, he was on a sleep apnea machine, so he dumped a half a bottle, which is way, 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 way too much in any kind of session of inhalation, into his sleep apnea machine, and it recirculated the air, so he was just getting this concentrated half a bottle for several hours. Then he woke up, and he went to the hospital because he thought he was going to have a heart attack. So then he gets out, because as soon as the liver and the body process metabolize that out in a couple hours, he was okay. But then he calls me and he asks me if it's okay if he put eucalyptus globulus in there instead. Well, there are several little kids who've gotten bottles of eucalyptus globulus and drank, a lot of it, and, went into a coma, and most of them recovered. But, nobody wants to be doing that. And I thought, I guess he was a very slow learner. He thought he was going to give himself a heart attack, and now he wants to kill himself. So eucalyptus globulus is more for adults only, and it's something that you wouldn't want to be concentrating and inhaling it with no other fresh air. It's okay to put a little bit, and it's a great thing to put in your washing machine if you don't have protector. It's a great thing to put in your dishwasher so germs aren't being spread among family members. And it helps to, wash bedding if, especially if children are sharing blankets, sharing pillows, anything like that. You can go ahead and put it in your washing machine, and you don't have to worry. If you have something that's in that lower lung area, you can diffuse some of it. I diffuse it with Ravensara and Eucalyptus radiata, or there's some in the Breathe, so that it is not just straight Eucalyptus globulus. My aunt has used it for years, and she's pretty healthy now since she's turning 90 and hasn't gotten all the flus and everything that everybody got, and she always puts Eucalyptus globulus in her laundry, and it's just a good thing to do, a good practice. And the good thing with Eucalyptus globulus is it's usually not a very expensive oil, so you can actually afford to use it that way. But don't forget to use the protector. You can use it if you only want to buy one thing, because you can make the little misters to spray on things. You can put it in everything. You can wash your floor with it. If you have diaper pails, you can drop a few drops in there. any place that you want to protect yourself from picking up anything. And like I say, even though we think we're not putting our hands in our face or in our nose, it's something that happens kind of subconsciously, and you don't realize that you're doing it, but you probably are doing it. So another thing is, in a lot of these flus and so forth, we know that, sorry, I had to have another drink, that kids can spike a really high fever. And it used to be in the old days that one of my in-laws was telling me when he was a kid, if you got a fever, they wiped you down with rubbing alcohol. Well, rubbing alcohol is not exactly a non-toxin, so we don't want to be doing that. But you can take several drops, meaning, maybe 10 drops, and put them in a pint jar of warm water and put a cloth in that water, and you can wipe down anybody. It doesn't have to be just a child. You can wipe down the chest area, the torso area, the back, going down the arms. If they're a little kid and they're in bed and you can get to their legs, you could wipe down their legs, and it'll bring that fever down very quickly. The thing you have to remember is it is so effective in reducing fevers, and at the same time, your skin is absorbing it, and it's also, killing viruses and bacteria. So if you get it on the child, you have to make sure that they don't get too cold, because it can actually give you a chill from going from a hot fever to cooling off and get a chill. So another thing that none of us really probably have to be worrying about right now, since it's, 40 degrees outside, if a person is heat stroke, and a lot of people who are construction workers and they're out on highways in the summer and it's super hot, sometimes someone will get heat stroke. And when they do, you have very short period of time. You can't load them up in the ambulance, take them to the hospital. They'll be dead when they get there. You have to take care of heat stroke, and we're not talking just a little heat making you feel dizzy. We're talking heat stroke, where you're in serious trouble. You can use that same formula with the eucalyptus and the water, and you can cool them off so that, and then they can go to a hospital. But it's really important for you to know what you can do right away when something happens, and you are able to respond and possibly save a life. So just another little side note, hopefully some of you are taking notes, or since it's being recorded, if there's something you wanted to remember and you didn't get a chance to write it down, you can go back and listen to it again. So there's one thing I'm going to tell you, and I want you to really, really pay attention. It's on page 7, and it's talking about when an infection turns serious and is not responding. There may come a time when you will put a drop of Tri-Remedy, which is the 3 oils, excuse me, the clove, the cinnamon, and the rosemary. And by the way, those are all on the grass list, as generally regarded as safe for consumption, in a double-aught capsule. Now, a double-aught capsule is the big one. So you would put a drop in there, not a bunch of drops, a drop. And then you would fill that capsule with olive oil and put the lid back on. And you can take 1 or 2 of those, like you would take any antibiotic or whatever, 3 or 4 times a day, for no more than 2 or 3 days. And you would take it with food because they are hot oils. That's why you only put 1 in, and you're diluting it in that double-aught capsule. And that is after you have done everything else we talked about. and somebody is continuing to get worse. Now, it's not something you're going to do first. It's something you're going to do if you have to, because it is harder on the body and it's harder on the liver if you take those hot phenol oils by mouth. And most of the time, particularly if you get right on it and you don't wait until you're completely incapacitated and have to stay in bed all day and can't even help yourself, to start, putting this material into action. We need to do prevention first and really be serious about that, because it's not fun to try to undo it once it gets a good hold on you. So this is just like the last thing you're going to do. And then while you were doing this, you could also be putting the lavender and oregano on your feet. So let me just check through here really quickly. The getting ready for an infectious disease outbreak, which, it's already outbreaking, so we now need to start getting ready. One of the other things that I really wanted to talk about is the children today, and that means teenagers too. And I have two grandsons and a granddaughter that are between 23 and 21, and they're just as bad as the little kids as far as their immune systems go, because they don't eat right. They skip meals, they eat out, they get fast food stuff, and so their immune system is not getting fed properly. And we have some amazing nutritionals at the HBN, particularly Nourish. Nourish, I think every child should be having some Nourish in some juice or their soup or whatever you can get them to have it in, applesauce, whatever, because it's very concentrated fruits and vegetables, and more than you're ever going to get any little kid to eat, to get the nutrition that they need to stay healthy, to remember they're growing taller, their bones are growing at a fast rate. Ours aren't doing that anymore. Some people's are going the opposite direction, so it's really good for the elderly also. But it's important to, if you can't get your child to eat, and I have a young grandson who's 9 years old, that if he can identify a vegetable, he won't eat it. But he can eat, he loves smoothies, green smoothies, any kind of smoothies. You can put any kind of vegetables in those, or grass or anything else, and he loves it. So it makes it easy to top off your children's food for the day and make sure that at least they got that. They got that much of what they're going to need. People that are on medications, the mind, the body, soul, which is a super anti-inflammatory, and those things are going to be important too, because it would be really nice to build yourself up if you are a person who has an inflammatory disease, if you're a person that has heart issues, or maybe you have, something going on with your nervous system or your mind. You want to get yourself in as good a position as you can and as good a health and wellness as you can, so that if you need to take care of yourself, if you need to be where you can't go out and get more medication, if something, serious happens, or you get a quarantine or something, that you can get yourself as healthy as you possibly can be and have things on stock. I always try to keep, right now, I can sit and look across the room where I have some oils sitting that I just recently received, and I keep buying the same things that are in this paper we're talking about over and over, and making sure I have extras, because for some reason my girls that live here in Coeur d'Alene, where I live, think I'm their drugstore. So I have some for me. I have some for my grandchildren when they start to get sick and their parents say, oh, I should have ordered one of those. I'll have to do that. Well, that was about 10 bottles ago. So we want to have these things available, and if you do, and if you follow those protocols and you don't go tell people, oh man, I'm so excited, we're going to cure the coronavirus, and we're going to cure this, and we're going to cure that. You don't want to be using that language, or we're going to get the oils removed from where you have to get a doctor's prescription, and nobody's going to have them. And you can really ruin what you got going as a really good business by saying words with illness names and by saying cure or fix or anything that implies that you're going to cure somebody. And also by claiming body parts. What we want to do is talk about wellness, how to stay well and how to help support your body to recover its wellness if you start to get sick. And when they're coming down on just the people selling this liquid alcohol stuff from the FDA and finding them and making them change all of their labeling because they got so excited about that there's a new dreaded disease that they could sell a lot more if they talked about curing it and preventing it with that, which I'm telling you isn't going to prevent the common cold even because, again, it only kills or disables any kind of very weak bacteria. It's not going to do anything for the strong ones. Otherwise, people wouldn't be sick that use it a lot. It's in every doctor's office. It's everywhere. It just reminds you that you really need to be doing something with your hands to keep them away from your mouth. But other than that, it's not very helpful. So I think we've covered probably a lot at one sitting, and hopefully we can, talk more about essential oils and other things they do besides respiratory infections down the road, whatever kinds of things you're interested in. Mostly, I want you to remember what we talked about, phenols in hot oils and children and the liver and putting them on your feet. Everything doesn't have to go in your mouth. It's more effective when it's not. We're only going to do that tri-remedy as a very last resort. Please read through the paper and see if you have questions that come up, and maybe if you do, we can see about getting those things answered on another call. But thank you so much for taking your time to listen to us talking, to decide to invest in yourself and get a little more education on what amazing things that we do have that can keep you and your family well. So thank you again, and I believe we'll let Veronica have her moment. Veronica? Hello?
Veronica, are you there? Might not be there. Thank you.
Okay, well.
Thank you, Alexandria, so much for your valuable information. We sure appreciate your time and your knowledge. And I think lots of us are going to re-listen to this over and over because there was so much provided. Thank you so much.
Well, that's why we have the sheets too, so at least people can read about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But hearing it from you was just wonderful. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you for making the call work.
Anytime. It was my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All righty. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye.